once or you will get burned. To earn, you got to learn. Illiteracy is man's greatest enemy. It's your duty, yes, your duty, stamp it out completely. Ignorance always impedes progress. Education saves you much distress. So learn as much as you can. For the nation's future's in your hand. Children stay in school and learn well. Otherwise,
WEFM, the new fresh sound.
WhatsApp us or call us at 457-9997. Activated Mornings on WEFM 99.9 is on now.
And we are back with you for another segment of our Activated Mornings program here on WEFM. Remember that this is a segment of the program where we get commentary from Kingsley de Freitas, so we are standing by to hear from Kingsley. All right, so we haven't seen Kingsley calling in, so that means he's probably busy. All right, so Kingsley, if you are hearing us, good morning to you. All right, so I see somebody calling, so let's set the call before we head into our next topic. Hi, Joshua, good morning.
Good morning, I am not Kingsley.
Good morning, Joshua.
Good morning. Dianna, welcome back.
Morning, thank you.
Good morning to Nicole and good morning to
Good morning.
It's sadly to hear of another shooting or taking down of a mentally ill person. In Bermuda, we do not use the word crazy. You know, that's we don't use that word at all. Now, as you rightly said, Roleza, there's got to be another way. 6 bullets, it doesn't matter what. Our police officers need training in every area. If someone is mentally ill, you don't send a gang of gunslingers to take that person out. Is there somebody who could negotiate? You know, there has to be some way. 6 bullets. Anyway, that's just going to be a 9-day talk. And tomorrow, 9 days from now, the same thing is going to happen. But I would like to send a word of caution out there to the bus drivers, the conductors, the teachers. Leave the little girls alone. And parents, when you dress your children to go to school, your boys, dress them as boys. I was so embarrassed on Saturday. I was in Hamilton. Hamilton is our city. And there was this young child, so well-behaved, well-mannered. And I looked at the mom and I said, your daughter is well-behaved. I'm so proud of her. The little girl said, the child said, I'm not a daughter, I'm a son. But looking at him, nothing about that child looked like a boy. Everything was girlish. And if at that age, you dress your little boy like a girl and everything, he eventually very likely would grow up thinking that he's a girl. So parents, make that distinction. If your boy is a boy, dress him as a boy. Dress your girl as a girl. And again, I appeal to adults, leave the little children alone. Have a blessed day.
All right. Thank you very much, Joshua. All right. Any comments from anyone?
Yes, 6 bullets is a lot, and as you said, Roleza, there are ways. And it comes back again to the perception of what is mentally ill or what is mental illness. And I think sometimes so much sensitization has to happen because even at various other levels of citizenship, you find that people are always able to label someone, and for many years we didn't understand that those labels came with other attributes, other issues, other things. But I don't believe that that kind of force should have been used. I mean, I don't know the scenario, we don't know the scenario, but that is quite inhumane, and that is a lot of force. Not six, not even one, because there are methods and interventions.
Okay. All right. Just with regards to what Joshua said, of course, yes, there is always going to be that call, especially for many adult men, to let school children be school children. All right. They need to grow up in an environment or in a society where their education is going to be prioritized, and we need to just leave them alone. All right. So just a reminder. Just a reminder. All right.
I want to add in there, in terms of safety in public transportation, that's a big deal. And it's a big deal because sometimes you feel so vulnerable and you don't have a choice because this is just the way you have to navigate your day and your access to wherever you're going. So, I mean, to really enforce that and to have to say it to adults and to people who should be protecting the young children and the new, especially those who are going out for the first time or back to school, the last thing on anybody's mind should be to harm our young people.
But unfortunately, Nicole, this society and religion living there. Well, I shouldn't even say because I don't want to make it sound it's just happening now, right? It's been happening now, right? But there are going to be predators out there, and it's just for us to be able to instill in our children, both boys and girls, not to go down a particular road because it can have serious long-term, lifelong consequences for you. All right. So it's just always that constant reinforcement and that constant reminder to our children. Mm-hmm.
And then we have to tell our children and remind them with this sense of fear in it. And we still have to turn around and ask the adults to stop. That kind of don't make sense, but it is. I mean,
mm-hmm.
You have to ask an adult to leave a child alone.
I get you. I totally get you.
It's the height of understanding, how sick, how depraved, how unfortunate it is in these days to have to do that, to have to ask that. And let's just jump in as well to Joshua also referenced dressing the boy and the referencing the gender identity story. I mean, the thing is, that's a parenting 101 thing. That's a family decision. We talked about this a little bit last week. And again, I'm just glad that the child understood that, hey, this is how I have to correct you and, identify. I have to share my identity with you as not being what you think. But we should really understand, as he said, what it means to a child, not just with their identity sexually, but even like with people's names. I always have people call somebody by their appropriate name, stop the nicknaming, because sometimes that all of those other things are embedded in our psyche, and it can contribute to other social challenges down the road.
Mm-hmm. There's also another thing that Joshua spoke on, but I was looking at it in reference to the school uniform in terms of how school uniforms are to be worn. I saw a video yesterday from, I think it was put up by the Bookament Secondary School, and they actually had a video in terms of how the girls are supposed to carry themselves and how the boys are also supposed to carry themselves. They had a video, in the video it also showed, or it said how the girls' hair should be worn, and today they are going to be inspected upon coming onto the school compound. They're going to be inspected. And this is one of the things where I find too many times that going to school looks like a fashion statement, right? I know that when I went to GHS, we did have particular rules in terms of how our uniform was supposed to be worn, etc. And I don't know, this is not just specifically targeting GHS, but targeting many school students and I often wonder whose home they live in, because when they're dressed like young adults, I mean, In a sense, yes, they are, in a sense. But when you see them dressing to go to school, sometimes they no longer look like school children. From the hairstyles that are worn to the way in which the clothes are being worn. Like, I don't know how some of these boys get into the pants that they have on, knowing that the material isn't even stretch material. So I often wonder, well, I'm here with the plastic bag too. I still need to witness how it actually works, but I've heard about the plastic bag thing, right? But I mean, the thing of it is that if you are going to school, you are going to school. It's for you to learn. It's not about a fashion statement. And another thing as well, to the schools where children wear ties. I really and truly would like for the teachers to observe how these children are wearing their ties. And even, let's say, the adults who know better, to emphasize that even while they are in public, that the ties should be worn properly. All right. Many times I see the ties tied in such a way where you can't even see the school crest, right? Well, I know that in high school we used, gosh, confession time. We used to take the tie sometime and we wipe away hand in the tie and that kind of thing, right? That's a no-no, right? It is absolutely a no-no. That was real confession, right? It's a no-no. You are supposed to carry your uniform with a sense of pride, with a sense of dignity. You are representing your school. And I mean, I know people talk about the individuality, you have to let children learn to be children, etc. But a school uniform is a school uniform, all right? And if you are going to school for education, not for fashion, then let it reflect such in the way that children are attired to go to school.
Yeah, that's important. I always say respect your school uniform, and you're going to be in it for at least 5 years. And if you go beyond that, 7. So I think it's really, really important that we impressed upon young people, and especially, it brings with it so many other, attributes in terms of, it tells me I have an identity. It tells me that I am being educated. It gives me that sense of belonging in a particular group or space. And then it also leads to how we enjoy our journey in school, and then what it means as we go into the workforce and that kind of thing. So for me, it's like respect uniform. That's where you're starting, and if you could do that for 5 years, it means you are aligned to something that is also expressing meaning. So yeah.
Do you have the situation in Trinidad as well, to where if you see children acting up in a particular way in public, especially in the school uniform, do you pull them up?
Of course.
Okay, all right.
I mean, not like long time, but I do. I feel I have a sense of responsibility to do so, especially if it's my alma mater. If I see them, I'm like, hello, I wore that uniform, and I sometimes say, how long ago? And I will, I would say, look, here's what, and sometimes I'm really like, I know it's after school, but you know what? Just tuck your shirt in or button back up that button until you, because we have to also just understand there's so many other things that are aligned to a uniform. And then, of course, if you join armed forces or military or any kind of organization like that, again, you're in uniform, and it also has to be respected at that stage of your career. So start early. And I like the fact that in the Caribbean and in a lot of countries, there's still school uniform, because last week, at the beginning of back to school, some of my loved ones, little ones, were going back to school in North America. And again, it was fashionable. And I looked at it and I love them to pieces. I love them dearly, but I'm like, Lord.
Yeah, I actually
color up.
And that's the thing, because like for them, they have to get clothing for different seasons. So this is costly, where for us down here in the Caribbean, you buy the 5 blouse, you buy maybe the 2 skirts or the 3 pants or whatever, and they go to school with that, So yeah.
That's economical.
Yeah, but the reason why I asked you the question is, when we talk about the village, and sometimes persons no longer want to correct children. Like, I am one of them who, if I see a child doing something in public, I am going to pull them up immediately. I don't care if they will call me Tanty afterwards as a way of making me feel bad or whatever, but I do it, right? Because I still do think that there are times when we have to try to rein them in. we have, as the general public, we have to try to rein them in. Sometimes these type of discipline or correction that they need to get, yes, they probably might get it in school, but they may not be getting it at home. And, we talk about that village, and I noticed that some persons take this hands-off approach. Well, it's not my child. I don't need to say anything. I'm not responsible. But, there are ways in which that we can speak to children to correct them without making them necessarily feel bad or whatever. And one of the things in particular that I hate to see or hate to hear is when they're using obscene language in the school uniform. So one time I would just do the pulling up. So I raise this to say that, many times as a society, we don't want to get involved. But if we are going to be, or if we want to see that change within our young people, all of us can't step back and say, this is not my problem. Let the parents deal with it. All of us can't do that.
No, and sometimes it's an opportunity. Sorry, Dianna, go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. And at the same time, everybody has to pull their weight. If you think about the water cycle, right? If one part of the water cycle isn't functioning, let's say condensation isn't taking place or there isn't any precipitation or whatever the case may be, then the cycle is affected in some way. And I think it's the same way for the raising of children, because while you may correct the child in the street, if at home that is allowed according to who the child is, I would say, then they forget everything you tell them in the street. The next time they go out, it's the same thing again. Some parents don't want you to talk to their children. And I think that's the reason why some persons are afraid to even pull up children, especially teachers, because now teachers, they seem to have very little rights. It's all sorts of the rights, don't do this and don't do that. And then you have this from the parents. And so you feel as though your hands are kind of tight sometimes. So even teachers are afraid to correct children. I would admit that even as a teacher, I would if they're not my students in my class, according to who the child is, I would be very hesitant to correct that child. Certain children, you see them, and because you know that they have some kind of parents, if they're on the left, you find yourself on the right and things like that. I'm not saying that is how it should be, but some persons would just look to protect themselves. And even in teaching, you may teach your child, you should say good morning to somebody, or you should say please and thank you. Then they go home. That doesn't happen at home. So it's like every day they come back to you, you have to redo the same thing because it's being undone when they go home. So,
but that's the thing. Are we going to lose our generation coming up if we don't know what to do?
I think we know what to do, and it's just we're not doing it.
I want to jump in here, though. I'll tell you something, and I realize it across the Caribbean, because I go from island to island. I smile when I see it, because one of the things we have not lost at all is our politesse. You walk somewhere and a child or adult, regardless of where you are, says good morning. We still have those values where people are still polite and still kind, genuinely. And then, of course, we have the other challenges that we will deal with, or that we have to deal with and grapple with. But I think where we have to probably understand what happens, or what is contributing to that, is where the sense of values might be good inside of the household up to a point. And it may be up to a point where it's about good manners, saying good morning, being kind. But then sometimes a circumstance or a situation might just cause a pushback, and particularly with adolescents, we have to also be so very aware, because sometimes we've been there and we've done that, or we might have done it as badly or as acutely or as visibly open, but we might have been having a thought or having that inclination, or have a classmate or a friend who was like that. Times have changed radically and drastically, but I think our value systems are still in a good place where we have a little capacity to bend that rod or reshape that rod. And that's just me being very hopeful.
All right, well, we have to be hopeful, because otherwise, what's going to happen with society. So yeah, even if it's just a glimmer of hope, then we're gonna have to hold on to that. All right. All right, so with that, we are going to head on out of this segment. The time here in SVG, it is 8:03, and our time check came through the compliments of New Haven Funeral Home.